I wasn't expecting my ego to get wrecked by a girl in a coffee shop uniform holding a cup of burnt coffee. San Francisco mornings are chaos. Cars honking, espresso machines screaming, and me, Ryan Vale, the guy people love to call the tech playboy. I'd just closed a funding round that made headlines, slept 3 hours, and walked into a cafe looking for caffeine. Not confrontation, but confrontation found me in the form of her. She was behind the counter, frowning at her register like it had personally insulted her. Blonde hair tied in a low ponytail, pale pink t-shirt that read, "Been there, brewed that." She looked young, college young, but her eyes had the kind of exhaustion you don't get from all-nighters. The kind you get from carrying too much responsibility too early. "Black coffee, no sugar," I said, pulling out my phone. She looked up, unimpressed. "We're out of black coffee," I blinked. "You're a coffee shop. Congratulations. You can read." She turned to grab a mug anyway. The machine broke. "You can have an Americano, or water." Her sarcasm hit like a slap. Most people usually melted under my grin and name recognition. She didn't even flinch. "Water," I said, leaning on the counter. "Expensive vintage, I hope." "Straight from the tap." "It's artisanal," I laughed, genuinely. She didn't. When she turned to pour, I noticed the faint tear near her sleeve seam, the faded tag on her jeans. The little signs people with money never notice, but I used to before I had it. I slid a $100 bill across the counter. "Keep the change." She looked at it, then me, then the bill again. "Sir, your ego's showing." "It's a generous tip. It's unnecessary." She pushed it back. "I don't take charity. That stopped me." "Who said it's charity?" "You did." "With your eyes." I couldn't help the smirk. "Maybe you should learn to read them better. Maybe you should learn to use them for something other than staring at your reflection in the window." That one landed clean. I was still grinning when she turned away. I didn't even want the water anymore. I just wanted to know her name. It came accidentally. "Hey, Lily, register's jammed again," someone called from the back. Lily, perfectly unfitting for her sharp mouth and sharper eyes. I left the coffee shop that morning mildly offended, wildly intrigued, and carrying a sudden stupid urge to prove her wrong about me. 2 days later, she showed up at my company. I was in the middle of a product meeting when my assistant buzzed. "Ryan, the applicant for the internship is here." I didn't remember approving any intern, but when she walked in with a folder clutched to her chest, I nearly laughed out loud. The girl from the cafe. Her ponytail was tighter, her shirt plain white, her jeans less frayed, but it was her. The same glare. "You," she said under her breath. "Me," I said, leaning back in my chair. "Small city. You own this place?" "Founded it." "Of course you did." I gestured to the chair opposite me. "So, Lily, applying for an internship at my company. Must be fate. I didn't know it was yours." Her jaw tightened. "If I had, I wouldn't have applied. Yet here you are." She sat down anyway. Her resume was thin but honest. Computer science student, part-time barista, freelance tutoring to pay for tuition. No fancy schools. No family connections. Just grit. "Why do you want this internship?" I asked, mostly to see if she'd crack. "I need the experience," she said simply. "And the money." I tilted my head. "You're refreshingly direct." I don't have time to be anything else. There was a pause. A short, heavy one. Something about her tone made me wonder what kind of debt or weight she was carrying. But then she crossed her arms and the defensive shield came back up. "I'm not here for sympathy, Mr. Vale. I wasn't offering any." Her lips twitched, almost a smile, but not quite. "Good. Then we understand each other. I didn't hire interns. My HR team did. But I overruled them that afternoon and told them to bring her on. I told myself it was because she was sharp, unflinching, and maybe good for the team. But deep down I knew it was because she was the first person in a long time who didn't treat me like a god or a wallet. The next week was entertaining. Lily was assigned to the same project floor as me, and our paths collided like magnets in denial. She questioned everything, my decisions, my code reviews, my methods. When I told her she could take a company car for client meetings, she refused. "I'll take the bus." "You realize the client's 40 minutes away. I can read a schedule. Buses don't have Wi-Fi. Neither does humility." Apparently, my team laughed behind their monitors. I couldn't even be mad. She had a tongue made of diamonds, sharp and clear. But sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, I caught her checking her phone with a worried look. scrolling through what looked like tuition payment pages. She'd work late, too, quietly, methodically, with the same intensity I used to have before money softened me. One night, technically late afternoon, because the sun was still high, I walked by her desk. "You've been staring at that code for 2 hours," I said. She didn't look up. "It's not compiling. Want help?" "I'd rather fail on my own than succeed because you fixed it." I leaned on the divider, smirking. "You've really got to learn how to accept help, Lily." "I've learned that help usually comes with a price tag. Something about that line hit too close to home." I straightened. "Not from me." "Right," she muttered, typing faster. "Because guys like you never expect anything in return." The bitterness in her voice wasn't just sarcasm, it was personal. I could hear it. Before I could say anything else, my phone buzzed. A reporter wanting a quote about my serial dating reputation. Fantastic timing. Lily's gaze flicked to the screen, then to me. "You really are exactly who I thought you were." She stood up, gathering her stuff. I sighed. "Believe it or not, Lily, people like to write stories." "Then I hope you like the one you're writing right now," she said, and walked away. The next morning, my assistant burst in, panicked. "We've got a problem." "Define problem." "Lily, she's refusing to take payment." I frowned. "What?" She turned down her first stipend. "Says she doesn't want your charity," I groaned. "It's not charity, it's payroll. She says you personally approved her. So she's refusing to take a cent until it's clear it's not, her words, some CEO guilt trip." That woman was going to kill me. I found her on the outdoor terrace, laptop open, eyes narrowed against the California sun. "Do you enjoy making HR panic?" I asked. "I enjoy having principles," I crossed my arms. "You earned that money." "I earned the experience. Then let me pay for both." She shook her head. "You don't get it. I've seen people like you throw money around like it erases the damage you do. I won't be part of that." The words hit harder than expected. "Damage I do?" She didn't even know me, but she wasn't wrong. I took a slow breath. "You need tuition money, right? Let me help. No strings, no conditions." Her expression softened for half a heartbeat before she caught herself. "And why would you do that?" I hesitated. Because I saw myself in her once, hungry, tired, pretending not to need anything. But I said, "Because you deserve a fair chance." Her gaze locked on mine. "You don't even know me." "Then let me." The air between us tightened, like the city paused to listen. She closed her laptop and stood, her voice steady. "You can't buy my trust, Ryan." I wasn't trying to. "Yes, you were." And before I could respond, she walked past me, leaving the faint scent of coffee and something like defiance in the air. That night, still daylight outside, the sun dipping gold behind the skyline, I got a call from finance. "Ryan, the transfer you requested went through." "What transfer?" "The one you ordered. Tuition payment to a Lily Monroe through her college bursar's office." I froze. "Wait, I didn't—" My assistant's voice cut in. "You told me to handle it." And I realized I had, earlier in irritation, offhandedly. It was supposed to be anonymous, but nothing stays secret long in this city. By the next morning, the whole floor knew. Someone had overheard, spread the story, and when I walked into the office, Lily was waiting, arms crossed, eyes burning. "You paid my tuition." "It was anonymous," I said quickly. "Anonymous doesn't mean invisible." "Lily." "Listen." "No, you listen." Her voice shook, furious and hurt all at once. "You think you can fix people with money. You can't," I opened my mouth. But she was already walking out. The sound of her footsteps echoing down the glass corridor might have been the first real silence I'd felt in years. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the one with power. I felt like the guy who'd just lost something before he'd even figured out what it was. You know you've screwed up when your own assistant won't look you in the eye. 2 days since the tuition fiasco, and the office had turned into a social petri dish. Everyone pretending they weren't whispering about me and Lily. I'd walked, in that morning, to the sound of keyboards clicking a little too fast, conversations dying a little too suddenly. Lily hadn't come in. For someone who didn't like me, her absence hit like caffeine withdrawal. I sat in my office overlooking downtown San Francisco, pretending to care about quarterly projections while my mind replayed her voice. You think you can fix people with money. Maybe she was right. Maybe I did. The door opened and my assistant Nora peeked in. She's downstairs. Lily? She came to drop off her badge. Says she's quitting. I was already halfway to the elevator. She was in the lobby, holding a manila envelope, hair pulled back tight, jaw even tighter. When she saw me, she didn't flinch, just exhaled like she'd been expecting me. Here. She handed me her badge. Thanks for the opportunity. Lily, stop. You're not quitting over this. I'm not quitting. I'm refusing to be indebted. Then consider it paid forward. Ryan, this isn't a TED Talk. You can't make generosity sound like justice. That stung. Not because she was wrong, but because I didn't know how to prove she wasn't right. I didn't mean to humiliate you, I said. I just wanted to make things easier. I don't need easier. I need real. The lobby was bright with sunlight spilling through the glass. I could see her reflection beside mine, two outlines that didn't belong in the same frame. She turned toward the door. Lily, wait, I said. At least let me talk. Talk then. Stay. 1 more week. Work on the code deployment with me. Then walk away if you still hate me. Her arms crossed. You think proximity is persuasion? No. I think you're too good at this job to waste it on principle. She stared at me for a long moment, weighing my words. Then she sighed. 1 week, that's all. Day 1 of forced proximity felt like walking barefoot through glass, quietly painful, with occasional moments of bloodshed. We worked side by side in the conference room, pretending not to be aware of each other's breathing. When I offered coffee, she said, "You don't have to bribe me with caffeine." When I joked about debugging being relationship therapy for introverts, she didn't even smirk. But somewhere between the silence and the tension, something shifted. She stopped avoiding eye contact. I stopped pretending I didn't notice the way sunlight caught in her hair. At lunch, she finally broke. Why did you start this company, Ryan? I shrugged. Control issues, she frowned. That's not an answer. It is. I grew up with nothing I could control, where I lived, what I ate, whether the power stayed on. So I built something that couldn't be taken from me. She leaned back, studying me. So all this, she gestured to the sleek office, is what, compensation? Survival, I said quietly. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. That afternoon, she stayed late again. I didn't leave either. We ended up on the terrace, laptops closed, watching the sky fade from bright gold to a softer amber. I shouldn't have judged you, she said, her tone low. But I did. I deserved it. Maybe. But you're not what I thought. Disappointed, confused. I smiled. That's progress. She shook her head, hiding a reluctant smile. You're insufferable. You're smiling, though. I'm tolerating you. That's practically affection. She rolled her eyes, but the line of her mouth softened. I didn't touch her, didn't try to. But for the first time since we'd met, the air between us wasn't battle, it was balance. The next few days blurred into a strange rhythm. Morning arguments about workflow, afternoons filled with laughter that surprised us both. Small things, her teasing me about my minimalist desk, you have the aesthetic of a robot, or me stealing her granola bar and pretending it was team bonding. It felt normal, dangerous word for a man like me. Then Friday came, her 1-week deadline. She showed up early, as always, hair down this time, a tiny change that felt seismic. Morning, I said, pretending to focus on the code on my screen. Morning, she said. No sarcasm, just warmth. It was terrifying. Halfway through the day, a reporter showed up for an interview I'd forgotten I'd agreed to. He asked all the usual garbage, my dating life, my infamous reputation as Silicon Valley's most eligible mistake. I brushed it off, but Lily overheard. Later, she found me in the break room. Is any of that true? What? That you treat women like networking events. I exhaled. You really want an honest answer? Yes. I used to. Her eyebrows lifted. Used to? I was good at distraction. It's easier than feeling anything real, but it got old. And now? Now I'm sitting here explaining myself to a girl who still hates me. Her voice softened. I don't hate you, Ryan. I just don't trust what you're used to. That silence again. Not empty, charged. I looked at her. Maybe I need someone who doesn't. She held my gaze for a moment too long, then turned back to the counter. You don't get to say things like that casually. I wasn't trying to. Then stop before I start believing you mean them. Her voice cracked just enough to ruin me. That night, we presented our project to the board. She was brilliant, confident, sharp, unshakable. I couldn't stop watching her explain the algorithm she'd optimized. When the meeting ended, the board applauded. One of them said, "We should offer her a full-time contract." I grinned. Agreed, but Lily froze. Outside, she pulled me aside. You knew they'd offer that. I hoped they would. I can't accept it. Why not? Because it still feels like a favor. I groaned. Lily, you've earned this. She looked at me, really looked. Do you know what it feels like to always question kindness? I didn't answer. She went on, voice trembling slightly. I've worked since I was 15. Every dollar has a shadow. Every time someone helps, it costs something. I can't tell if you're helping me or trying to feel better about yourself. That's not fair, I said quietly. Maybe not. But it's true. She turned to leave. Lily. She stopped. If I wanted to feel better about myself, I said, I wouldn't have hired the one person who makes me question every damn thing I do. Her eyes shimmered, not tears, but something dangerously close. Why me, Ryan? She asked. Why not another girl, another intern, someone easier? Because you make me want to be someone you wouldn't hate. She exhaled shakily, like the words landed somewhere deep she didn't want to acknowledge. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Neither do I said. But maybe we don't have to get it right immediately. She took a step back, conflict written all over her. You're making this impossible. Maybe it's supposed to be. Her phone buzzed. She looked down, frowned. It's my school. They're saying the payment bounced back. What? She showed me the message. Payment rejected due to duplicate entry. I frowned. That's not possible. Apparently someone else paid it yesterday. I froze. Who? She scrolled. Her face paled. My mom. My stomach dropped. I told her I'd handle it, Lily said, voice rising. She must have seen the transfer, thought I... Her eyes snapped up to me. She thinks I asked you for it. Lily, no, she stepped back. This is exactly why I didn't want this. You made me look like someone I'm not. That's not fair. It's not supposed to be fair, Ryan. You're rich, powerful, and everyone assumes your money is your weapon. Now it's my reputation that's collateral damage. People were staring from the hallway. Let them think what they want, I said, trying to lower my voice. She shook her head. You don't get it. You never will. And with that, she walked out again. This time not with fury, but with heartbreak. Hours later, I sat alone in my office, staring at the city lights. The sun had set, but the sky still held traces of gold fading into dusk. The only sound was the hum of servers below. For the first time in years, I didn't want to win an argument. I wanted to understand her. The problem was, I didn't know how to fight for someone who didn't want to be saved. My phone buzzed, an email from HR. Lily Monroe has requested early termination of her internship, effective immediately. I stared at the message until the screen dimmed. Somewhere in that silence, I realized the truth I'd been avoiding. She didn't need my money. She needed me to mean something without it. The next morning, I found her outside the campus library, standing in the sunlight, holding a coffee cup. She saw me, sighed. Ryan, I can't keep doing this. I didn't come to argue. Then why are you here? To say I'm sorry. For what? For thinking money could build trust? Her eyes softened, but she said nothing. I added quietly, "You were right. It's not about payment. It's about pride." She looked at me for a long time, and I thought maybe, just maybe, she'd forgive me. Then her phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned. "It's my mom. She's sick. I have to go." Without another word, she ran toward the bus stop, and that's when it hit me. This wasn't about tuition anymore. It was about whether I could show up for her when it didn't involve money, when it meant being human instead of heroic. If there's one thing Silicon Valley doesn't prepare you for, it's helplessness. You can throw money at broken code, broken contracts, even broken reputations, but not at people. Not at someone like Lily. After she ran for the bus, I stood there longer than I should have, watching taillights disappear down the hill, realizing that this time there wasn't a single algorithm that could fix what I'd broken. The next day, I couldn't focus. My office was all glass, all light, all emptiness. The usual noise, the buzz of startup energy, the hum of ambition, sounded hollow. I tried writing an apology email. Deleted it. Tried again. Deleted that too. Everything I wrote sounded like a press statement instead of what I really wanted to say. I care about you. I don't know how not to. By noon, I found myself outside a hospital in Palo Alto. Don't ask how I found out where she was. I still had contacts at Stanford, and guilt makes you resourceful. Lily was sitting on a bench under a jacaranda tree, sunlight pouring through the purple blossoms, her mother's patient bracelet dangling from her wrist as she talked quietly to a nurse. She looked tired but steady. Always steady. When she saw me, she stiffened. "Ryan, what are you doing here?" "Checking if you're okay." "She's stable," she said, crossing her arms. "And you shouldn't be here." I wasn't trying to intrude. You keep saying that. But you keep showing up. Then maybe I'm just bad at staying away. She let out a breath, half exasperated, half exhausted. "You really don't know how to quit, do you?" Not when something matters. That made her hesitate. Just long enough for me to sit beside her. Her voice softened. My mom's heart condition came back. "She'll need time off work, which means more expenses," she nodded. "I'll pick up extra shifts." "Lily, don't say it," she warned. "Don't even think about offering help." "I wasn't," I lied. Her laugh was humorless. "You really think you can hide that savior complex behind charm?" "No," I said quietly. "But I'm trying to learn how to just be here instead of fixing things." That stopped her. She looked at me, eyes searching, as if trying to decide whether she could believe that. The nurse called her name. She stood, then paused. "You can wait if you want, but don't follow me in." That was progress, I think. Not forgiveness, but proximity. Hours passed. I bought 2 coffees from the vending machine, both terrible, and handed one to her when she came back out. She took it. Didn't thank me, didn't refuse it. Just sipped quietly, like we'd done this 100 times before. Finally, she said, "You ever think about why you do it?" "Do what?" "Give, fix, buy your way into being the good guy." I thought about it. Really thought. Maybe because it's easier than asking for anything back. She frowned. "What do you mean?" "People expect rich men to want something in return. Attention, gratitude, control. But what if I'm just scared of needing?" The sunlight caught her face when she looked up. "Needing what?" "Someone. Without conditions." For the first time since I'd met her, she didn't argue. She just sat there, quiet, coffee warming her hands. In the following weeks, we kept crossing paths. I'd drop by the hospital with sandwiches under the pretense that I was in the area, though I lived 20 miles away. She'd roll her eyes but eat them anyway. Sometimes we'd talk about work, her classes, her mom's recovery. Other times we just sat in companionable silence while the California sun painted long shadows across the parking lot. The tension between us was different. Now, softer, sadder, like 2 people trying to unlearn their reflexes. One afternoon, she said, "You stopped trying to fix things. I told you I was learning. How's that going?" "Terribly," I admitted. She laughed, a small, genuine sound that made my chest ache. "That's honest," I smiled. "I'm trying to earn extra credit." "Don't push your luck, Vale." but the edge in her voice was gone. When her mom was finally discharged, Lily went back to work at the cafe part-time. I showed up one afternoon, not to talk business, just for coffee. She looked up from behind the counter, half smiling. You know you're kind of famous here? Everyone wants to see the billionaire who got roasted over drip coffee. I've been humbled. I'm a better man for it. You say that like you mean it? Maybe I do. She poured my coffee, handed it over, and leaned against the counter. You know, I thought you were the most arrogant person I'd ever met. Only thought? Still debating, she teased. Then her tone softened. But you surprised me. How? You didn't run when I made it impossible for you, I shrugged. Guess I don't like easy things. Her eyes lifted to mine, sunlight glinting in the brown. Then maybe you're exactly where you should be. A week later, she showed up at my office. No announcement, no warning, just walked past reception like she owned the place. You have a meeting in 5, I told her, half smiling. So do you, she said. With me, I raised an eyebrow. That so? She nodded and set a folder on my desk. I'm taking the full-time offer. I blinked. I thought I needed to know I earned it, she said. Now I do. Something in my chest eased like a tension I'd been holding since the first day she threw that coffee back at me. I'm proud of you, I said quietly. She smirked. Careful, that almost sounds sincere. It is. We looked at each other for a long moment. That familiar battle of wills was still there, but underneath it something new. Something dangerously close to tenderness. She tilted her head. Why'd you really hire me, Ryan? I hesitated. Because you reminded me of everything I lost trying to win. Her voice dropped. And now? Now you remind me what it's like to want something that can't be bought. The room went still. The sunlight spilled across her hair, painting her in gold, and for the first time I didn't try to charm my way out of the silence. I just let it stay. A few days later, we presented our final project together, again, this time as partners. The board approved it unanimously. Cameras flashed. People congratulated us, but all I saw was her smile across the table. After the meeting, we stepped outside into the courtyard. The California afternoon bright and alive around us, she said, You know what's funny? What? When we met, I thought you were everything wrong with men who had too much. And now? Now I think you're just a man who's finally figuring out what enough feels like. I laughed quietly. You make me sound like a redemption arc. Maybe you are. I looked at her. Really looked, the sunlight soft against her skin, the wind catching a strand of hair she didn't bother to fix. I paid for your tuition, I said softly. But you're the one who taught me something, she smiled. What's that? That love isn't a transaction. It's an investment, she raised an eyebrow. Terrible metaphor. Occupational hazard. We both laughed. And she reached out, brushing her fingers against mine. A small, wordless gesture that somehow said everything. No grand declarations, no melodrama. Just sunlight, quiet understanding, and something real enough to terrify us both. A few weeks later, she called me from the cafe. Your order's ready, she said when I answered. I didn't order anything. I know, but you'll show up anyway. She wasn't wrong. When I arrived, she was waiting outside with 2 coffees and a grin that didn't need words. As we walked down the sunlit street, she said, You know, I was wrong about you. Which time? All of them, I glanced at her. That a compliment? Don't push it. We stopped at the corner. The city around us was loud and alive, but for a moment it felt quiet, like the whole world had exhaled. She looked up at me. You didn't have to do all this, Ryan. I know. Then why did you? Because for once I wanted to give without taking, and somewhere along the way I fell for the person who wouldn't let me buy her. Her smile wavered, then steadied. You really are bad at staying away. I warned you. And I warned you, she said, stepping closer, that you can't buy trust. I'm not trying to anymore. What are you trying to do then? I met her eyes. Earn it. She didn't answer, just reached for my hand. And that was enough. Funny thing about life, the world keeps spinning, money keeps moving, and people keep pretending they're invincible. But then someone walks in, burnt coffee in hand, sharp words on her tongue, and everything rewrites itself. That day in the cafe, I'd thought I was the one giving. Turns out, I was the one being taught. She needed tuition money. I paid without asking for anything, and that's when I fell. If you felt every beat of Ryan and Lily's story, the pride, the heartbreak, and the fall that turned into something real, don't just stop here. Hit subscribe to Romance Chronicles for more stories of redemption, obsession, and love that changes everything. Stay listen and fall again, where every episode reminds you that even playboys can learn to love.